I've got some notes here too about the wareroom of the warehouse where the bodies were buried right after the hanging, primarily, of course, in 1865. They were buried beside the scaffold, and they remained there. In 1867, by 1867, a little picket fence had been put around the graves, and they each had a wooden headboard in order to facilitate, in keeping with the data recorded by the prison officials as to who was buried where. Now, in 1869, the president finally released the bodies. And when he did so, of course, before that, right after the initial hanging, the families, more or less, of the condemned had petitioned for the release of the remains of their family and kinsmen. And of course, the government was adamant at the time, no, you're not going to be able to retrieve them now, perhaps later, but not now. So the bodies remained there, buried in the prison yard. Like I said, in 67, they erected this nice little white prison fence. I've got some interesting things about the bodies and about the bottles. Most people assume, of course, there were bottles with the prisoners' names on them placed in the coffins upon their burial. People assumed it was the names. Well, I found a newspaper article that described that it wasn't just the names on that slip of paper put in the vial, but they had also put the date of the execution, what they were executed for, and the nature of their crime. All of this went on a piece of paper, put in a glass vial, which was contained in the coffin. When Powell's body was exhumed in 1870, they found his body, the bones, and of course the vial was still there. They said that insects had eaten through the cork and eaten the paper that was contained in the glass vial. What happened to the vial, I don't know. It's probably still with his remains, which are, we think, located in Rock Creek. We're not sure. After Booth's death, it was facilitated that, or thought that Booth, according to Baker, had buried Booth's body at the bottom of the Potomac. We all know that's a myth. Mr. Booth was taken, as John and Barry had stated, to the warehouse, or to the arsenal. It's put in a small cottage temporarily, and then the body was taken into the Wardroom 1, or the warehouse, and buried beneath the flagstones. And I have a description of that room here. Now, if you've ever read anything by George Alfred Townsend, a very noted reporter of the day, he kind of gets kind of flowery in his prose, and sometimes you can't believe everything he writes because he liked to exaggerate, and he liked to exaggerate a lot. I found this article recently by Mr. Townsend, and here he describes that upon entering into the warehouse, we found that before the varied contents of the long room stretching ahead, it could be scanned, but a short turn to the left brought us to the side room, under the floor of which was first buried Booth, and subsequently the rest of the conspirators, and yet more subsequently Captain Wirtz, the Andersonville jailer. The room is a rectangle about 40 by 20 feet, and about 20 feet high also. It is lined with shelves running up and across so as to form many square pigeonholes which are filled with all manner of articles. Right in the center of the room, the ordinary flagstone flooring had been taken up, and the gaps left by the disinterment of Mrs. Surratt on Monday last and of Harold on Saturday night had not been filled up. The earth was heaped high on both sides. A single trench, 5 feet deep, 15 feet long, and 6 feet wide, has held the ugly boxes which contained in order Mrs. Surratt, Captain Wirtz, Lewis Powell, alias Payne, George Atzerodt, David E. Harold, and John Wilkes Booth. Mrs. Surratt's disinterment left the boxes holding Wirtz and Payne and Atzerodt quite visible.